Hey,
Hi.
what's up?
Hi.
Hello.
Long time no see. Sorry, we've
Social
been a little bit
message.
inconsistent. We've been very busy. Like, I've been back and forth from Missouri to California to LA, like, a lot this month. And Hannah has a job. So sometimes she has to work. Sometimes I'm just not by Wi Fi. But we're back now every Wednesday. That's what we're going to do.
Yes, there was talk
So
about
sorry we took a
Tuesday.
little hiatus.
We did Fridays for a while. We were going to do Tuesdays. Then I
Yeah.
remembered that I have to go back to the office on Tuesdays starting next week. So we settled on Wednesday. So we're here tonight and we will be here every Wednesday forward. And hopefully this beautiful little lady Jay can join us
is a good
more
day.
often.
Yeah, for real. We love her political insight. We'll give a few minutes for people to come in. Give it like a minute. How's everybody been?
I guess I should tweet this.
You guys been
link.
good? Doing anything? Yeah, tweet the link. Shout out to Liberty Thought. Hey, what up, Tack? This is the boy right here. He's great. That's the homie. He streams every Sunday on his YouTube channel, so go check him out. I was on his channel once and some shit popped off, not with him, but with other people. So go check it out. Canceling pedophiles out here, baby.
Absolutely.
Chuckster, what up? Not much, Chuckster. Just chilling on a Wednesday. Have you guys done anything exciting like the last few weeks? Either of you two ladies?
Last few weeks. I don't even remember what I did yesterday.
Right? That's how I am.
I know.
I'm going to see a wedding venue on Sunday. I hope it's
like literally been like I would say, oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm excited for your wedding.
No, you guys are both.
I hope I'm invited. We'll see.
I'm so excited, dude. I'm so freaking excited.
Are you gonna send me like an invite in the mail?
Yeah.
I'm invited.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm sending the link to all my friends, to everyone who wanted to come watch.
My Wi-Fi is kind of shitty, so
yeah, you keep freezing.
If I break up, I do. Let me try this Wi-Fi. Hold on.
Everyone keeps texting me per.
Am I good?
That's better, Sarah.
Okay, hold on. Better? Okay. If it goes out again, I'll try a different Wi-Fi. My house has like 4 Wi-Fis. All right. Well, we should. Right? Oh, we should get it popping. So we have a few things we want to talk about. I know it's like a little bit kind of late in the news, I suppose, because like, you know, we've talked about, we've just been really busy. So I guess if you want to talk in terms of political news, this is a little bit a week or two ago, but this is also, I feel like, a very important topic for us to talk about. I think me and Juliana have a lot of expertise in this particular subject, and Hannah has her views, and I know she can contribute. Actually, Hannah, did you play sports, or am I like tripping?
I did, but I played a girl sport, and there were no boys that we.
Right. Okay. So we've all had some experience.
I thought I was doing that too, but
right. So just to give a little background on my experience in the fitness world, because I don't want people to think I'm like not talking about things I don't know. I've been a certified personal trainer for 7 years. I worked in the gym for 4 as a trainer, and then I've been doing privately under the table, paying all my taxes for the last 1.5 years. So this is an area that I have a lot of knowledge in when it comes to like fitness. I'm not an athlete per se. Like I don't play on a team sport, but like lifting weights, general health and fitness, that's like my thing. And then Juliana, I know you have a lot to say on this too. So give your background on that.
Well, okay, I'm trying to think. Where do I even start? Well, I've been playing competitive sports my entire life, like literally since I could walk. probably since about 4 years old. I'm now 24. And so I have been a competitive athlete for 20 years. And I was a Division I athlete for 5 of those 20 years.
Wow.
And I do have a lot of experience competing with and against trans athletes. And Division I women's fencing.
Okay, so that's like college level, like highest
Yeah.
college level, like yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, so you're pretty
And
good.
I mean, I went to NCAA's. I kind of choked. I came 20th. I could have done so much better.
Okay, but that's like nationally. I mean,
yeah. I mean, like it's good, but like
right.
for what it should have been, I just
it's not good
dude,
for, but like for the average American, like no one else is in the top 20. So obviously.
Yeah. And I mean, it was out of 24, so like I wasn't last. It was cool.
Yeah, there you go.
But still, even the person who came last is 24th in the nation. So like that's still good, you know. But like I still get like riled up thinking about it because I'm just like, damn it, like Anyway,
right.
But I want to say it was the first time I ever competed against a trans athlete. I think it was my junior year. I was an undergrad, and we were competing in Boston, and it's like our Division I program is one of the newer Division I programs, and so our program was only around for like 6 years, I want to say, and so we're one of the smaller Division I programs, and so we went to this meet and we were whooping ass. Like we were kicking like the Ivy's ass. Like we had just whooped Harvard's ass, like all that. Like we were like, yeah, we were like, kicking ass and taking names. Anyway, anyway, we go up to compete against this university, and I'm not going to say the university's name, but there was a trans athlete on their women's team, and this trans athlete is transitioning male to female, and mind you, for years I have always been the tallest woman in Division I fencing. Like I'm 6'1". I'm very tall, and for my weapon, that gives you an extreme advantage. And so I had never come across, even at nationals, I had never come across anyone that was my height or taller. However, oh my gosh, hi Violet. Sorry, I just saw a comment. But this individual who, I'm sorry, it still makes me mad. This person was about 6'2", 6'3", and which, mind you, is not that much of a height difference between this person and myself. However, it was a huge, it was a vast, discrepancy between other athletes.
Well,
and
right. It would be like, and some people are naturally going to be better at basketball because they're tall. Like I'm 5'11", some days 6 feet. Same for you. Like you're going to have certain sports where you're probably just going to have an advantage because of your height.
Yeah, and that right there, and that's
right.
Yeah, and that's just a biological anomaly and things like that. And versus like, something that's like you were born this way and now you're actively seeking out any, sort of some treatment to, that inherently, whether it's your intention or not, it inevitably does give you an advantage. Yeah. And so this individual, this individual is very thin. They weren't super like built. However, you can absolutely see that this individual was clearly built like a man, and broad shoulders, knobby knees, no hips. I hate to say this, but I was trying to figure out if this individual was trans or not. Yeah. And in doing so, sadly, my eyes, reverted to down there because I'm like, yo, like what? And of course, I can see what is, an athletic cup used for male athletes.
Right.
And so I'm like,
I mean, the cups.
Yeah, no, they are.
so they kind of stick out. They bulge.
They do.
For
They
a reason. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in like, you know, for women, it's the same. We have to wear a protective chest guard. And because, you know, I mean, if you're getting consistently hit in the chest, like, dude, that is not good. Like, and it hurts. And so like incredibly, it's very painful. And so we have to wear that, and it sticks out. And so like, but this individual, you know, they swept our entire women's team. And I remember being absolutely livid because I was like, my record, my perfectly clean record was, for that meet, was stripped away by someone with a penis.
Yeah.
And
in women's sports.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And, you know, obviously, you know, both men and women, we do have competitions outside of NCAA fencing where you can compete in what's called mixed events. However, you go into those events knowing that you are competing against both men and women.
Right.
And so, you know, you're already mentally preparing for, you know, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", you know, huge dudes. You are preparing for that. And, but in NCAA's, you're never told. You find out usually right before or in that moment. And so, I don't know. It just pisses me off. And this individual, I've graduated. I finished my master's in May of 21. However, my alma mater has recruited a trans athlete to their team. And I spoke to my former coach, and I had mentioned, you know, because there was talk of me coming on as an assistant coach, blah, blah, blah. And I really wanted to do that. I love the program. I love the kids, all of that. The kids, I mean, they're like 2 years younger than me, but whatever. But I told him that I will not coach a team that enables mental illness.
Yeah.
And
fair.
And my coach still to this day calls this trans athlete, who is, you know, male to female, quote unquote, still calls this athlete he.
Right.
Wait.
To this person's face. Yeah.
What?
Yes. My coach knows.
Yeah.
Like, my coach knows that this individual is a he.
Right.
But my coach is
and
like,
that's
if we're allowed,
it's so problematic, is like, don't you have to properly pronoun people or whatever? But
you do. And my coach does. However, my coach is extremely old. And so sometimes I feel like he forgets, but also at the same time, I think that he does care, because he's, one, old, two, you know, I mean, he has Hall of Fame Olympic recognition. I mean, he doesn't give a fuck. And so, you know,
why are you having them, if you're trying to be so PC that you're letting them on the female team, like, and then you're still going to misgender that, you know, it's like, well, why are you even on the female team?
Yeah, no, I know.
Agenda is that fitting? It doesn't really.
Well, I actually asked him about that, and he had mentioned that his reasoning for that was, if we're going to be allowed to play that game, he's going to play it. Like, if we're going to be allowed to.
So it's not actually even a transgender.
Yeah.
It's someone taking advantage of the system.
Yeah, and I told him, he was like, yeah, you know, like, we're gonna win, we're gonna dominate women's epee, blah 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 blah. And I was like, and I told him, yeah, at the expense of biological women. I was like, you're gonna be hurting your other female fencers. You're gonna be hurting them just to get the advantage of just for the personal advantage of this one person. You're gonna be sacrificing the victories, the losses, all of that, of 5 other women who have worked just as hard, and in my opinion, if not harder, to be there, and who have earned their scholarships. And this individual, not that this matters a whole bunch, but this individual also has admitted to me, this trans individual has also admitted to me that they have not had bottom surgery, and they refuse to do so. And I don't know, a part of me feels like, if you want to take on the identity of the opposite sex, maybe make an effort to do so.
Yeah, and I mean, I know it gets complicated because it's expensive, but also it's like,
This
They don't have
this
to
kid
decide
this kid
anymore.
comes from money. This kid
Well,
comes from
that's
money.
and
I know
it's
this
also
kid is
like
fine.
most trans people who are genuinely trans, like they would do anything to get that surgery. You know,
Yes.
like they would fucking work 7 jobs and do whatever
Yeah.
if they really wanted it
GoFundMe's, all
bad,
that.
like,
Yeah.
they would do it. Because if you're really trans, like, and I don't want to say like really trans and not really trans, but like, you know, I do genuinely think like some people are just born in the wrong body and like they are trans, but like that was like 10 years ago versus now. Like trans is a very different thing, and like that's just where I have a problem with, especially in the sports, is like, well, at the end of the day, like trans people, you know, 10-15 years ago, they knew that they were going to be different, and like they just, you have like, life is going to come at you. There's going to be things that like are not fair, and as a trans person, you're going to know that there's just some things that are not necessarily going to be fair. Like, hey, some people aren't going to want to date me because I used to have a penis. That's fine. Like they know that and they knew that, and now I just feel like this trying to like accept what reality is, which is that some people are born male, some are born female, and you're trying to literally change that. It's like that's where I have the issue, because now it's affecting like actual women like us who have to compete against, well, I mean, I'm like not an athlete, right? But like,
No, I know what you mean.
yeah, like you
I know
could,
what you mean.
and I mean, being in like the training world, and it was really just like average everyday, like 9-to-5 engineers, especially in the Bay Area. I was training mainly like engineers and like nurses, but like you would see them come in for their like first session, and I'd be like, okay, let's do some push-ups. Like I want to check your form, and it helps me see like how tight like shoulders are and stuff, right? And there's like a reason that I'm doing this, and always men, even if they have like not worked out in years, are able to do a few more push-ups the right way than like a woman. And that's just because men naturally are going to have more upper body strength. And then for example, women, like because we have like childbearing hips, I've noticed that when I ask them to do a squat, like it looked a little bit better than like a man doing a squat. Like there's just some anatomy that we are built with that's going to help us do certain things better naturally. Like it's just
It's
how
biology.
it's like literally biology, right? And
yeah,
so
and
it's like you can't change biology.
Yeah, and there are plenty of female athletes I know who, you know, who naturally release higher testosterone or things like that, but those are all biological anomalies. And so like I think that those, you know, those people are still just as much as a woman as all of us.
Yeah.
And I myself, even I have polycystic ovarian syndrome and like PCOS. And so my body, I naturally have a higher I naturally have a higher level of testosterone. And does that give me, you know, an advantage? Honestly, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know. However, I'm still a woman.
That's
and
life, you know.
Yeah.
You have
and so
yeah.
However, I do recognize that, you know, it also could be genetic components of, you know, that I have as not, you know, that I have as not just testosterone related, but, you know, I build muscle incredibly quickly. I'm PRing in the gym all the time, like at least once a week in something. And so, you know, I don't know. It's just, you know, it's, you know, genetics and anomalies, things like that. But the whole issue with Leah Thomas has really, I mean, really just absolutely makes my blood boil. Because I mean, I see all of the things that these women on the UPenn team are going through, I went through, and my teammates have gone through, and you know, all the new freshmen at my alma mater are now going through because they have this whole adult male, you know, masquerading as a woman and, you know, just, you know, sweeping the floor. And I just, but anyway, and with Leah Thomas, I genuinely believe that this person, like, I feel for Leah Thomas. I genuinely believe that Leah Thomas deserves, you know, love and help. However, I don't think that enabling this individual is going to help them in any way whatsoever.
Well, I don't think it would be as enabling if you weren't very obviously like taking something away from other people. But like that's the whole thing with like, you know, being a libertarian or whatever the fuck you want to do. It's like do your thing, but don't bring harm to others. So it's like if you want to be trans, sure, go ahead and do your thing. But like now you are in a way harming like girls, genetic females who have worked just as hard as you have, and you're kind of taking that opportunity away from them, which is going to harm them. And I mean, sure, you're not like doing anything breaking the law to them, but like it being an athlete in college is hard. It's like a full-time job, you know.
And
like, you're
based on your results, you oh goodness, you I mean, your scholarship fluctuates based on your results. And so inherently,
right.
you know, you are losing some sort of livelihood sustaining binding contract in a way. And so it just like a professional athlete would. And so that's also something that really saddens me, and that really just again infuriates me, because there are so many individuals, you know, who do, I mean, you literally, like, these women literally have to make either, you know, top 4, top 8, or the fine, or, you know, top 2 to, you know, sustain whatever lifestyle it is that they have in order to continue to train and continue being that student athlete or that professional athlete, or et cetera. And so, I don't know, to see Leah Thomas strip away the NCAA title from a literal Olympian.
Well, yeah,
like,
and like
I thought that was
very
absolutely
obvious
wild.
that it was because in that specific situation specifically, like you had an advantage over women specifically.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's a reason there's an NBA and a WNBA. If you put fucking Steph Curry on a WNBA team, that's going to be all of a sudden the best WNBA team in the fucking league, you know, because there are certain like advantages to
like when it was a he, or when she was a he, she was like 400 and something.
Right.
Like,
437th.
Yeah. And so it's like, obviously you're winning because you are competing against women. This is not that you are a genetic woman and you have trained your entire life.
No one goes from 437th to first nationally in less than a year. No one.
It doesn't matter how hard you train. Exactly. It's because you are biologically built differently. And I will say, I played volleyball from the time I was 9 through high school, and I coached when I was done as an adult. I coached boys and girls, and at the club that I coached at, like 12 and 14s, there was occasionally like one boy on the team, because there isn't really boys volleyball programs in Oregon until you get a little bit older.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to coach the boys team as well. My dad ran the program. And just seeing the level that 18-year-old boys play at versus 18-year-old girls, like in the same club, same age, it's a different game. Like there are so leaps and bounds ahead of just what the girls can even do as far as jumping and hitting the ball, and like how hard they can hit the ball, how strong they are. Like that all factors in. And for me, it was so much more fun coaching boys because it's such a faster game, and it's, you know, a more intense game. And it's like, that's not saying anything except for that men are literally biologically, physically capable of more with their bodies.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah. And the bone density.
Right.
I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say women can have babies. Men can't have babies.
Right. There's different advantages that female and men, even the energy and like how we are as people. Like there's a reason, like, you know, the man and the female energy balance each other out. And with that being said, that doesn't necessarily mean like I think men and women have to get married to be together. Like you can have a woman-woman, man-man, gay relationship, but in those relationships, one is probably going to have more of the male energy and another is going to have the female energy, and it's going to balance each other out regardless of if it's a gay or straight relationship, because that's just how like we are as humans, you know?
Yeah. And one thing that I also think is interesting is how you never see a picture of Leah Thomas. You never see a picture of them from the front.
Yeah.
And I noticed that. And I just, it's because everyone knows. Like everyone knows.
Yeah.
Like this individual is what, 6'5", 6'6", probably has a wingspan of 6'8", 6'9".
That's so tall.
And, you know, this individual has vehemently broad shoulders.
Laps with
And
the fucking dude.
absolutely.
I'm sorry.
And, obviously, even though this individual is taking, supplementary estrogen or whatever, this person's voice is still octaves deeper than a woman's. And so it's just kind of like, dude, all you're doing is kind of like playing a game here. What, like, are you really going to continue doing this after NCAA sports? Because it seems as though women's sports has become a plan B for a failed athlete.
Or it's like you go to college and that's kind of currently like a lot of people are brainwashed in college into thinking that they're trans because they feel like different and an outcast. And so maybe like Leah Thomas was like, getting involved in the far left's woke agenda on campus and was like, oh yeah, you know what? Maybe I am trans. And it's like, well, maybe you're really not.
Yeah.
Like, did you feel that way before college, or did you get like indoctrinated at school?
Even honestly, and this is probably definitely a controversial opinion, but even people who feel that way about themselves, in my opinion, obviously, I do believe that these individuals are mentally ill in some way, shape, or form.
I think that's true, but like, I don't think that really, I guess like it's irrelevant to me because it's like everyone's mentally ill.
Well, yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, like if you're depressed, you're mentally ill. So it's like if trans is a mental, there was one girl that I follow on Twitter. I feel like I've talked about this before, but like her dad, so she's a male to female trans, and she was like, wrote a letter to her dad and she said like, this is a mental illness that I have and the hormones help me heal it. And I was like, that's a really fucking good way to put it. You know what I mean? Like, she's aware of her situation. She knows that she's different, but like, in order to be cured of her trans mental illness, if you want to call it that, like, she has to take the hormones. And I'm like, that's a really like cool way to put it that I feel like both sides can kind of understand, like the conservative side and the liberal side, So I was like, I really like respect how she like went about that. So like, even if it is like a mental, like that's fine, but just like, you can't let your mental illness affect other people. And like, when you're fucking playing on a sport for a different gender that you weren't born, that's obviously going to affect other people. So you have to draw the line. And like, where are we going to draw the line? Like, in 5 years, is the NFL going to get like female to male trans athletes in the NFL?
Oh no, you don't ever
work that way.
Yeah,
but
you never ever draw a line. You know what I mean? Like,
you also never see female to male athletes ever
because they would get crushed and fucking obliterated.
Right.
Yeah, and there was
gonna keep moving.
Oh, go ahead, Drew. No, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say that there's an individual who competes at Yale, and I do have more respect for this swimmer versus Leah Thomas, and I forget the name of this swimmer, but this swimmer has not like biologically not biologically, anatomically gone through any sort of procedures. However, this person is in the process of transitioning from female to male. And this person is a diver, I believe. If not, they're a swimmer. It's one or the other, water related. Anyway, and this person still competes in women's athletics.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to go through any sort of testosterone, any sort of, surgical treatment, enhancement, whatever, any sort of modifier. They don't want to do that until after they are done with NCAA sports. And in my opinion, that is one of the most considerate things that you can do if you are feeling as though, you may have some sort of gender dysmorphia or dysphoria or whatever.
Where like, in like fucking MLB, like, didn't Barry Bonds get like in trouble for taking roids because taking certain drugs that increase your tests is going to give you an advantage? So that even gets tricky where it's like, well, we know you're not taking these drugs because you want to have a athletic advantage, because like, I'm in the bodybuilding, like so many people I know do drugs, and that's fine, and they have an advantage, right? But it's like every male bodybuilder that I know is doing tests or train or something, but they're all fucking doing it. So it's like a fair like advantage, you know, but then when it's like when you're transitioning, you're now having this physical advantage against all the females, and that's still kind of not fair.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely not. And there are plenty of I heard about this. I forget. It was a few years ago, and I wish I could reference their name. But I remember hearing about a female or a boxer who was born female and was transitioning to a male, I believe, and or in the process of their transition, and ended up getting, I mean, like knocked out instantly in a boxing match because
Yeah.
this person competes in boxing. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. Maybe I wonder why. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and
No,
especially
for
because
real.
like the concept of like momentum, bone density,
Yeah.
you know, physics, like genetics, all of those things, like muscle mass, things like those, and especially in a sport where, like, you know, obviously, of course, I know that strength comes from legs in regards to punching and throwing a punch and things like that. However, the velocity that comes from a swing from someone that has a much heavier bone density, that's going to fuck you up.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It just, to
Yeah.
me, it's more so, it's not even more so that it's like, you know, oh yeah, I have a penis, blah, 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 blah. It's not even that. It's the fact that there are, I mean, legitimate differences between the two. And what makes me also mad is hearing my friends from school who are not student athletes, have never been an athlete, or they just play sports for fun, like recreationally, which, you know, no problem in that. But those are always the ones that are so A-okay with trans people competing in the sport that they are attempting to transition to.
That's what's super interesting about Caitlyn Jenner, right? Is like,
Yep.
she came out and said, her tweet was fucking hilarious, by the way, said that she has the balls
Yeah.
to speak out against it.
Yeah.
But like, I think that is an important distinction to make, is like, you can still, you don't have to be like a transphobe or like anti-trans
Yeah.
to understand that this is not a good situation. Like, Caitlyn Jenner is trans, and she says,
I mean,
no,
who is
like,
more
this is not
credible
okay.
than a fucking Olympian trans person to talk
Exactly. Like,
about this
that's
issue, you know? Like,
right. And
Yeah,
so
if anyone would know, it would be this person.
right,
literally.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like, and then all these people, you know, the Leah Thomas's like teammates are scared to talk out about how they're uncomfortable changing in the dressing or in the locker room.
That is
because
also a huge
it has a
issue.
PP, and the PP is just dangling and
Right.
swangling and fucking around. And
Yeah.
so it's like, they're scared that they're gonna get labeled a transphobe by saying, it makes me uncomfortable that there's a dick in the locker room. Like,
No,
that
literally,
doesn't make you a
absolutely.
transphobe, but
And
these
also
groups, it
at the
would.
same time, it makes your locker room no longer a safe space.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because, you know, obviously not saying that, you know, Leah Thomas is going to do anything. I don't know.
Right.
But it just, even just inherently makes that space unsafe.
Yeah.
And
Uncomfortable, even if the very least,
absolutely,
which is totally fine for them to feel
yeah,
uncomfortable.
it
Like,
should be.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
Yeah.
just like
and
the goalpost is gonna keep moving, and it's like, when is it like, okay, well, you just have to change in the room that, or the locker room of the gender you were born into, you know? Like, I remember I was in high school and there was this one girl, I'm pretty sure she was a trans, like female to male trans, but just like, she always would just kind of like change in our locker room, and nobody really said anything or like made it a big deal, because it's just like, she was born female, but she had like the short hair. She came across very like manly. And, like, no one
yeah.
really knew if she would, but it's just like, she just kind of changed in the women's locker room, and that was it. Like, nobody made a big deal out of it.
Yeah,
Like, she was
that's called
obviously born a
being
female.
considerate.
Yeah, and so it wasn't like a big like thing. And like to this
Yeah.
day, so I don't know if she was trans. I'm assuming now it's a he, or she is a he. And that's fine, but it's just like, there was no reason to make it like a big thing. It was just
Yeah,
I'm gonna
exactly.
get a little bit like, not feminist, but like, I don't know, as a woman, like, just knowing that you can't be uncomfortable in that situation when like everyone's aware of what's going on, right? Like,
yeah,
okay, Leah Thomas might be a female on the inside. On the outside, that's a dude. It has dude parts. And like for women to have to be exposed to that and like around it just because we're all pretending that like this is a girl and that this is legit, like that's fucking bullshit. If I was on that team, I would be pissed and I would be up in fucking arms about it because
me too.
It's so wrong that they're made to feel uncomfortable and they can't fucking say anything about it because of Leah Thomas and the
Title IX. Title IX will come after them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And Title IX is now being used against biological women in this case when it was originally invented and implemented for the protection of women. But now their protection is being stripped away from them for what? 0.3% of the population?
Yeah. And if you are going to be a trans woman and you are really, you know, whatever, I know there's a lot that goes into it, but if you are willing to chop your wiener off and get a vagina because that's what you want to be a woman, then okay, at that point we can talk about you changing in the girls' locker room because if you've got the parts, then sure. But
now you don't anatomically.
You're not a woman. I'm sorry, you have a dick, and that makes me fucking uncomfortable. If I have a boyfriend, or if I'm just not wanting to be around a penis, and then all of a sudden I'm changing in the same room.
Because all of those women, I mean, just you know, of course, obviously, inherently, we are biologically so much more vulnerable than men are.
Right, exactly.
And so automatically, you know, seeing someone like that in your presence when you are all in an incredibly vulnerable state, i.e. changing in a locker room, you know, what if this dude pops a boner?
And that's something that Leah Thomas, as a transgender woman, will never understand about the woman's experience.
Absolutely.
You don't get entered and violated every time that you have sex. I'm sorry, as a woman, that is something that straight men don't understand. No one is entering your literal body.
Men can literally stick it in a fucking like hollowed out zucchini and nut. Like they stick it in something, you know what I mean?
But
they actually need it inside of us. So there's like
so different. And that is something that she does not understand. She does not understand that can be an uncomfortable experience and something that's like, whoa, I don't want to be around this. Like, she doesn't understand that as a trans woman. So what the fuck is she doing in there? Like, you don't have that experience. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, absolutely. And it's just, I think it just goes to show how much, like, I don't know, like, I mean, this is gonna sound like fucked up, but I made like a tweet kind of like trolling. You know, it was, you know, doing what I do best. And I had essentially, you know, authored a tweet that was like, you know, BRB gonna go put Viagra in the Powerade at the women's NCAA championship meet. And because dude, yeah, like what the fuck? Imagine you get up on the block to, you know, jump off and start the race as soon as the gun goes off. Dude, sorry, you're bricked up. You can't compete. Like, I don't know. It's just like, and sorry, I just thought that's funny. But it also, I think, just goes to show how, like, you know, the whole concept of like women's rights, like, and, you know, I'm not trying to sound like a, you know, a crazy radical feminist, but I am loud and proud of TERF. So
yeah, I mean, there's certain things that it's like women's rights are women's rights. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
We're not fighting for. And this is like the controversial thing that I'll say is like, not every trans person is going to have the same rights as everybody else, and like that may mean like, sorry, you can't play in this sport, and that's it. That's just life. It's not fair. But like, if you're genuinely trans, like, you know that that's your situation, you know.
Absolutely, and you're conscious of it, and it seems as though only individuals who are biologically born female and are wishing to transition, it seems as though those are the only individuals that get it, and it's because they were born in the more vulnerable gender. And so, you know, if you're not, and, you know, I'm not trying to spout around like male privilege. Nah, that's not what I'm talking about. But like I mean, it's just, I'm sorry, it just makes me want to rip my hair out. And
it's the woman experience, the true woman experience that you have being born as a woman and experiencing life as a woman, not choosing to experience life as a woman somewhere later down the line, and then you say, "Oh, you're a woman," whatever. I'm sorry, you're not.
And
You
it was
don't
like
share the
that
experiences.
I think it was a troll tweet, but there was one that was like, "Oh, I'm a like male to female trans, and I'm experiencing my period for the first time. Why do people deal with
Yes.
that? Because we want to have babies,
Right.
so we just deal with our period. Like that, it sucks
Yeah.
sometimes, but like there's nothing we can do about it if we want to have children."
No, literally. If
You
you're
know,
a
I have
trans
a
woman
period,
experiencing
so
a
I
period,
don't have
call it a
to
day.
mow the fucking yard and do the yard work and take the trash out. I
I
fucking
love
love
doing
being
yard
a woman.
work.
I will take my
know.
period
I love it.
every month because
Exactly.
it means
Yeah.
my husband picks up all the heavy shit and does all the yard
Oh,
work.
literally, no. This whole last week, like my fiance was building shit, and then I was like decorating and organizing, and like that's just how it
I
goes.
love a
Like
traditional gender role.
yeah,
I
there's just
fucking
different
love
generals
it.
that you love it.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I would like it too. Although I will say I do love yard work. That is definitely something that I love. I also I don't know. I also like working on cars, but that's outside. That's definitely like a
No,
different
that's
subject.
fine. We all have manly
Um,
You
things.
want to be a
Like,
man,
I love-
Juliana?
Oh,
You want to be a
I
man?
guess, if I, oh my
You
goodness,
like men things, so
Are you
you must.
sure
if
you don't
you,
transition?
if you asked me this when I was, 13 years old, I don't know, like,
You'd be
Oh
like,
my god,
maybe.
right? It wasn't just a tomboy stage. Like you must have
which
been.
I think
legit
is so
trans.
wild because like, I mean, I mean, I didn't have really any phases growing up. Like, I didn't have an emo phase. I didn't have all of the typical phases that people do. And a lot of people are like shell shocked by that. I just kind of like vibed
You were
throughout my
just
whole
like
life.
you for
But
life. Yeah.
yeah. And so when I was a kid, like, I mean, grade school age, I was extremely girly, all of that. And then when I got, older, like middle school, high school, that was definitely like tomboy central. And no one questioned it. No one was like, oh, like, like, are you feeling more? I mean, mind you, would I get personal comments from people who I thought were my friends? Absolutely. However, it wasn't like any sort of indoctrinating system telling me, oh, like, have you ever thought about XYZ? Like, absolutely nothing. And mind you, like, did the comments about me being masculine and all of those things, did it affect me at a young age? Absolutely. It did hurt my feelings. And like, I mean, there was a moment of doubt even for a small bit, just hearing those comments from people around me,
Mhm.
making me think, like, literally, am I like I have more masculine, either like, interests, traits, whatever it may be. Like, like, am I a man? Like, and of course, obviously I snapped myself out of that because I was like, what the fuck? No. Like, I don't know. And also because of my height, I would have so many of my girlfriends at the time when I was in high school would always tell me like, oh, you give such good hugs. I wish you were a boy, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And I'm like, one, that's so gay. But anyway, yeah. And I was just like,
Well, yeah, and nowadays it's like those things would be like, oh my god, like, and that's gonna make someone who's not really trans like feel as if
it's gonna
they
put the thought in
question
their mind.
themselves. Right? And it's like,
And-
No teenager, nobody before they're 25, I'm gonna safely say, knows who they are. So if you're introducing these, oh well, maybe you're this way, to young people who don't already have a good sense of self and know who they are, and they're in the world literally trying to figure out who they are. That's what you do from like 14 to like 25. Who am I? What does it all mean? What is my place in the world? Like, introducing those thoughts to people who are already unsure about the answer is like, obviously you're going to convince some people.
Figure it out, like every trans person has figured it out for centuries now. I don't think we need to like try to convince people that they're a certain way. Like, just let everybody figure it out on their own. And I feel like that's a good transition into the next topic we're going to discuss. This is kind of Hannah's area of expertise. Well, not expertise, but she is the legal expert here. So she's going to basically be able to explain what the Don't Say Gay bill, which is obviously not the real name for it. It's just the liberal name that they gave it to make it seem like Ron DeSantis is a homophobe and a transphobe and hates gay people.
Love Ron DeSantis.
the Don't Say Gay bill. So, Hannah, take it away.
Okay, guys. So I read the whole thing. I took notes. I broke it down. It's very easy to understand, but I do understand that I have, you know, special exposure to these types of documents and legalese and whatnot. So I figured it would be fun to just break down what it actually says, because up until today, I still hadn't read it. I was like, obviously everyone on Twitter is talking about it. And I assumed just from tweets, I'm like, okay, I'm libertarian enough to understand that some of the new, like, conservatives combating this, like, leftist stuff in this era is, like, kind of cringe, right? And I was like, okay, it's possible that this bill is, like, kind of cringe and that there's some stuff in it that's, like, whatever. So I wanted to find out. And I will say, there is absolutely nothing ridiculous in this bill. It's 7 pages long, but it's like typed like a legal document, so it's not even actually 7 pages. It's very easy to read.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's got 7 things that it's introducing and proposing. So the first
so let me say, so as somebody who like doesn't know law and just based off what I've seen on Twitter, it's basically not letting teachers talk about anything LGBT related to kids under 3rd grade, right? Like that's what it is.
Sort of, but it's even
Okay.
so when you're proposing a bill or a legal document or a contract, anything that has legal language in it, it's going to hit on all the specific points that you want to hit on, but it's also going to be as vague as possible in the same breath. So it doesn't call out anything about transgender or anything like that, but I'll get to it. So I'm just going to walk through the points because there's 7 points that it wanted to introduce. And I think it's actually officially done. I think DeSantis approved it.
Oh,
yeah, he
it
approved
is.
it on
Yeah.
the
yeah,
28th.
DeSantis just kicked all the gay people out of Florida. Bye,
Yeah,
gays.
all of them. That's what it actually says, is that all gay people actually have to leave
All
Florida.
gay people are banned.
Okay, so points 1 and 2 basically are about services offered to students in schools for their mental health, physical health, emotional health, whether that's like talking to the counselor or the nurse or, you know, it obviously depends. I don't know what schools offer these days. I don't remember taking advantage of those services like as a student. But basically points 1 and 2 say that if there are any changes made to the monitoring or the services provided to the student regarding their emotional, mental, or physical health, the parent must be notified, and that schools cannot adopt any procedures or policies that would prevent the parent from being notified if there was a change to the student's monitoring or services received.
Okay, and that has nothing to do with being LGBT.
No, it has nothing to do with it. If you know, a kid comes to school and says, I want to kill myself.
Yeah.
Like this just basically saying the school is not allowed to have a policy that prevents the school from going to the parents of that child and letting them know what's going on.
Yeah.
Unless, and this is written into the bill, it's an important distinction, unless disclosing that information might cause harm, abuse, neglect to the child.
Right. So like if your dad is beating you up every night and you want to kill yourself from that, then you kind of have to get but there's already like laws about getting CPS involved and shit like that with schools.
Exactly.
So
Like,
it was super out of the ordinary. But yeah.
Right. They put that in there just to like be like, hey, this doesn't change anything as far as that goes. This just means that whatever services the student is being provided as far as their health goes, the parent will be notified if any changes are made to those services. So pretty cut and dry, not a big deal. Number 3 is the one that everyone's talking about. And I was like expecting it to be super scandalous or super conservative or super trad. It's not. Literally the bill point reads, classroom instruction by school personnel on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3.
Okay.
What the fuck are people so upset about? That's what they're upset about?
Okay,
they
so
can't
meaning
teach
like
gender identity and sexual orientation to K through third graders.
well, if like a kid was to come to a teacher being like, "Hey, I think I'm gay," like the teacher's not allowed to like talk to the little first grader about that.
No, it's just like that's not going to be a part of sexual ed like curriculum or
You don't even learn sex ed that young.
exactly. So what are people so upset about?
Yeah.
I remember doing sex ed in like fourth and fifth grade. I was in a fourth, fifth blended class for both like fourth and fifth grade.
Yeah.
And I remember that we did like something in fourth grade and then you had like the bigger talk in like fifth grade. So that's fine. But K through third, we never got sex education.
Yeah,
So
never.
it's not crazy to say don't teach kids in K through third about gender identity and
Right.
sexual orientation. That's
You
all
are
it
7. You are 8 years old when you're in third grade.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's all it says. It doesn't specifically say anything else except sexual orientation or gender identity. Pretty fucking
It's not that
straightforward.
deep.
And it's
not
like
that
It's not that
the
deep.
issue is that even has to be, because I am like not for the government really being involved in anything, but the fact that like that even has to be a bill, it's like, well, one, if you are really concerned, don't send your kids to public school. I do think they're worse in some states than others. Like if I'm sending my kids to school in fucking Missouri, I'm not as worried about it as if they were going to go to school in California, you know, because it's just like, but the fact that that even has to be made a thing now because of like all these TikTok like teachers talking to their first graders about how they have a wife and you know they're gay and they want to have a pride flag in their room. It's like I had a lesbian teacher in high school. She was the theater teacher. And like you kind of knew that she was a lesbian, but she didn't really talk about it in class at all. She never talked about her wife. The only reason that I knew is because like I was in the theater department. She wasn't just my theater teacher. Like I was doing the plays. And so obviously, like, you know, you get close with students and she would like bring up her wife to like her students she was really close with, but it wasn't in any way trying to like indoctrinate. It was just because like that's how you get with some teachers. You know, like you just get close with some teachers. And like, you know, my best friend in high school, he was gay. And so like he kind of knew that she had a wife. And it's like something you knew that she was lesbian, but you just never really like she never talked about it. It was just like a thing we all knew, and that was it.
Right.
It wasn't made a big deal. It wasn't like, hey, everyone, I'm a lesbian. I have a wife. In her class, never talked about it. Sometimes backstage at theater, there's a couple kids around, talk about her wife. But it wasn't in any way except like just telling us about her life. And I feel like that's a big, big difference than like trying to indoctrinate all of your students into hearing about your gay life. You know?
Like she's allowed to have her own identity, but like once you start to push your identity onto other people, I'm like, nah, like absolutely not. So yeah.
So yeah, that was like the point that everyone was pissed about. That sentence in the bill, it's one sentence in the bill, and it caused all this uproar. So number 4 says that any training developed or provided by a school district regarding student support services, which were the things we talked about in 1 and 2, there will be guidelines that will be established by the Department of Education. So every school district can't come up with their own guidelines about how to support these students.
Okay. I mean, I don't like the Department of Education, but like I get in a conservative bill like where it's coming from.
Right. Yeah, same. 5 says that at the beginning of every school year, every school district will notify parents of each health care service offered at their student's school and give parents the option to withhold consent or decline that healthcare service. So what that makes me think is obviously COVID vaccines. Like they're bringing them to schools and they're, you know, I think it even happened like at the high school down the street from me is like they were vaccinating kids without their parent, like 14-year-old kids without their parents' permission. So I think that that's more what this is referring to, but it is that broad language of like any healthcare services.
Yeah, blanket statements. Yeah.
The parents have the right to decline, which is fair.
As they should.
Number 6 says that before administering to a student a well-being questionnaire or a health screening for a student K through 3rd, so same thing as point 3, the school district must provide a copy of that questionnaire or health screening to the parent and then get permission from the parent that the child fills out that form.
Right.
And then number 7 is a couple pages in itself, but it's basically just offering remedy to parents who have a complaint about any school district that might have broken any of the rules that were laid out in the bill. That's all super legal jargon. It's not really important. Basically, it just lays out the conflict resolution if schools break any of the previous 6 things proposed in the bill. So when you really break it down, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that crazy. It's not that scary. It's completely understandable. And all it is giving parents rights to make decisions for their own children
Right.
in schools.
Which I feel like is what should be happening anyways.
Obviously, parents raise their children.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of like really, in my opinion, illuminates the fact that in, essentially almost every other state, parents don't have these rights.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think is absolutely mind-blowing.
Crazy. Yeah.
And like, I get it. Yeah, just send them like to private school, like I get that whole point. But like,
expensive.
of course, like, yeah, it's expensive. And like,
people don't have that.
Not everyone is that too, but also at the same time, like, it's also not easy to ships from private schools. And like, not everyone has the ability to, based on either, academics, athletics, etc., things like that. It makes, the inquiry of scholarships, it makes it all that much more difficult because like, not everyone is going to be able to, have a 4.3 GPA and then, like, you know what I'm saying? And so, regardless of your, socioeconomic class, financial, whatever it may be, you still deserve bodily autonomy as a minor, especially.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't like the whole like, oh, private school is the answer, because there's like certain issues that I would have sending my kid to private school. Like I know the private schools here in San Jose, for one, it's separate, like boy and girl, and like at the end of the day, like I feel like I had a lot of like free reign from my mom. Like we had a very like honest, open communication like growing up. Like, hey mom, like I'm 16 and smoking weed, and she'd be like, okay, well, do it safe, never drive, like know you're lit. It was like, hey, I'm gonna do these things. So like I feel like with private schools, there's a lot of things like I don't like the whole thought of like separate boy and girl, because like you're gonna, when you're 14, 15, you're gonna want to explore like relationships and like kissing boys and shit. And I don't necessarily think like holding your child back from that reality is healthy. Trying to keep like, but I don't like the idea of like uniforms, like your kids should be able
to
I
actually do. I think the idea of uniforms is interesting only because one of the reasons why it's like really encouraged at private universities is obviously to it's to prohibit any sort of financial insecurity between students. Like, oh, you're walking around with Jordans. Oh my gosh. Like I can, I'm walking around with, shoes that I, am still wearing from middle school, something like that. And so that is the one reason why I like uniforms. Other than that, I mean, I just think it's like a fancy, like, oh, all of our students wear uniforms and we just look nice, like for like aesthetic purposes.
Yeah.
But that's just the one reason why I do like uniforms.
Kids have to learn to like be themselves and like,
and
I have my issues in general with public school, just because like, it's not like I just felt so dumb growing up because it was not my learning style at all. Like no matter what grade I was in. And so I don't like, well, okay, if you don't want your kid to go to public school and be indoctrinated there, send them to private school. And I'm like, well, I don't necessarily know if like that's the right solution either. Like what can you do at because I don't think it's a realistic answer for everyone to just like homeschool their kids.
Well, you shouldn't.
It's not always feasible,
right? And you shouldn't have to worry about the things that they're prohibiting in this bill being reality for your child if you send them to public school. The fact that it has to be written and passed and signed and debated about and has been such a hot topic. This is basic parental rights. This is the right that a parent has to raise their own child and make decisions for their own child. And the fact that any school wants to limit that is the fucking problem. That's the problem. It shouldn't be that, oh, don't send your kid to public school. It should be that that's not even a discussion about public school, is because that just doesn't happen. But it fucking does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't know. It's interesting because I mean, like, you know, obviously with single parents, you know, et cetera, homeschooling is not always feasible. And while I do believe that it's, you know, probably the best choice, again, it's not the best choice for everyone. And so, you know, especially if, you know, it was the best choice for one of my siblings and I, because it allowed us to, you know, be in school and, you know, work in order to, you know, provide for our, you know, travels in order to get noticed by, you know, Division I schools, blah, 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 things like that. However, for my two other siblings, that was not the case. And so, you know, my younger brother, you know, went to public high school because he wanted to, you know, go into Division I football. And so, you know, you got to be a part of that, you know, then you go on to either JUCO or straight onto a 4-year or whatever. But, you know, but I mean, a public school is a literal instrument of the state. And so when a state, it's just like a public university. And so, like, you know, when the state is, or, you know, essentially when a public school is just encroaching on the business of students like that, it honestly, in my opinion, makes me feel as though the state is the predator and not the teacher. Because and honestly, like, you know, I have my own gripes with teachers, you know, however, I know plenty of absolutely wonderful people who are teachers.
Like there's some really good teachers. It's not all teachers are bad. It's just a few. Like I have some teachers from high school, like I just loved. Like I know teachers personally. I'm mutuals with teachers on Twitter. I've met, like, you know, recently teachers that teach like kindergarten, and they seem all like really good, like genuine people that just like really, really love kids. Like 2 girls that I grew up in high school with, and we're still like, you know, mutuals to this day. Like we talk sometimes on Instagram, like they're teachers, and I know that they're like great, phenomenal teachers. Like
and in my opinion, those teachers know their place as teachers. They know their place as teachers. They also know that they're not the parent. And so, you know, that was one thing that I was able to have the blessing of being able to experience, because when I was in high school, in order to, you know, I guess afford lessons, like private lessons, one-on-one with my coach, I coached students at our academy. And so obviously, of course, I'm not teaching a subject where it's a sit down subject, you know, different in that regard. But, you know, I mean, students, especially in grade school, I mean, they just say the most random things. They say the most outlandish things. I mean, of course, you know, with brain development, there's not really any sort of cognitive, you know, realization as, you know, what something can mean, the weight of what it means, you know, things like that, the consequences, like, you know, their hippocampus, all of that, nothing is developed. And so, you know, it's not saying that you shouldn't take a child's words seriously. Definitely not saying that. However, it's taking what they say with a grain of salt in regards to X, Y, Z.
If a 6-year-old comes to their teacher and is like, oh, like, teacher, I'm gay, and like they don't know what gay is, they just overheard a conversation about like 2 guys making out, and then this little kid all of a sudden thinks that like when you really like a guy, it means that you're gay. It's like he really wants to be friends with the cool kid, anything, you know, like little kids don't know what they're talking about. And then this little 6-year-old is coming to this super liberal teacher in California and is like, oh, I'm gay, and then all of a sudden this teacher's gonna start talking to them about like pronouns and like being gay and shit. Like I just don't think that that's appropriate.
And then this kid's, you know, and then with a child's nature, they're eventually going to be nurtured into that lifestyle, because it is nature and nurture, in my opinion. And so, you know, I don't know, it's really sick, but I think of all cases, I'm surprised that this like indoctrination bullshit, I'm the most surprised that this is happening within public schools versus private, because, you know, if anyone wants to or has the ability to encroach on your rights, it's private schools. They're private. They don't receive federal funding. They have endowments.
kids who went to Catholic school kind of growing up being weird and like having a weird view of the world, you know, because their parents forced them to go to Catholic school. Like it was never the homeschool kids. It was never the public school kids. It was always like the kids who went to like Catholic school that had like this.
And
weird
inherently, you know, and inherently those children, you know, had this stereotype of being the wildest ones because they were brought up in the strictest environments. Like, you know, why? And so it's things like that. But out of both public and private, charter, whatever school or education you're seeking, the public school environment and institution should be the most liberating. Like, you should be able to make a choice for yourself based on literally whatever and why, and, you know, for whatever reason you want, and for, you know, again, like literally whatever reason you want. Because I mean, you choosing to go to a private school that either enforces, you know, blank rules, like whatever that may be, you are still opting into all of those and making that conscious decision to enter that environment and proceed with the requirements enlisted.
It's a free market thing, right?
Exactly.
You're voting with your dollar, and you can choose not to if you don't want your child to go to that.
But with public school, you can't make that choice.
Right.
And so then it thus inherently takes advantage of the poor. It also inherently takes advantage of, you know, the minority populations, and, you know, the most at-risk individuals in our country are then preyed upon by public education institutions.
Well, I mean, just to like,
and that's the point. That's the whole point.
Advocate here for a second. Like, I remember in high school, I was like lame. I was a theater kid, right? So there was one more. I know. So there was one morning, the same teacher that I was talking about, the theater teacher. I walked into the room that morning to hang out with all my friends, and there was this one student, and she was just like sobbing her eyes out, and we were all just kind of like sitting there, like, what's going on? And then her best friend walked in, and the teacher came to us, and she's like, hey, I need you guys to all get out. And I guess she had gotten like this huge fight, like with her dad that morning, and he was like yelling at her, and like, you know, it was like they were Asian, so Asian parents can be very, very strict. And she was just like breaking down, like crying to the teacher. So it's like, in that case, I feel like that teacher was the only person that was like there to listen to her and was like, hey, I need you guys to like all get out. She's having like a serious issue. Like, you know, so it's like, in some cases, I feel like, what if the public school teachers are the only people there that if there is some sort of abuse or something going on at home, like, they are the ones that are there to be there for you, you know, when like no one else is going to listen. And so that's where it gets tricky too, because it's like, my experience is I just hated school. I hated the learning environment, but I really didn't have any bad teachers that were like trying to indoctrinate people. Like, in my experience, it was more like teachers there to like listen and like be there for you if you were like having a hard time and needed someone to talk to, couldn't talk about your parents' stuff going on at home. And so it's just like, where is the line of like, what is appropriate that a teacher can talk to you about and what is not?
Right.
That's just where it gets.
And I mean, like, you know, if a child is bringing something to your attention regarding like any sort of mistreatment, that's totally a different versus like, you know, super different. Like, in my opinion, I have been in situations where, you know, either was, and when you are in a position, you also consider you know, you are absolutely required to report regarding, you know, anything that, whatever. And so, I did deal with residents who were in abusive relationships, and there was
your audio's
like
cutting, Jules.
Okay, I thought it was just me, but it is a little,
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, okay, that's weird. But sorry. Anyway, but there was a resident that I had who lived directly across the hall from me, and her boyfriend at the time were in an abusive relationship, and however, she was the abuser, and it was very interesting, just the dynamic of that, I guess. But uh, and so it's and I definitely had to report several instances due to, even though he wasn't my resident, she was. And,
Yeah.
if there was, and there's, and if this problem is, being not, no problems were even brought to me. This was a problem that I noticed, and it was a pattern. And it's also, noise complaints. So it's affecting everyone else. But even if it wasn't, it's still harming another student on campus. And so, regardless if he's my resident or not, and because I was the RA of an all girls dorm, so he definitely wasn't my resident.
Right.
But in situations like that, I absolutely believe that there is the
Yeah.
need for some sort of either authoritative assistance or something. But like, nah, dude, if you're just talking about, how you think that, you might have the wrong genitalia, like, dog, it's out of my
Yeah.
pay grade.
I think
Kind of
that's
out of my
just
pay
where
grade.
the line and the limit has to be, is because I do think like and I mean, all the teachers that I know are from California, and they're all really good teachers. And like this girl that I'm friends with, like, it's so cute. She's just a sub right now because you have to like work your way up to be like an actual teacher. You go through like 2 years of subbing, and she like posts like stuff on her story of like kids who like wrote notes to her. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. But they would like write notes to her like, oh, Miss whatever, you were the best like sub ever. Thanks for being so kind. And I'm like, that is so sweet. Like these little kids remember her. She's leaving such an impact on their life. And so it's like, I do want to say that a majority of like teachers are still really, really good and like not going to cross a certain line or not going to like try to indoctrinate kids to be and like the experience I've had with having a gay teacher, no one was being fucking indoctrinated. So I do kind of think some of it is just like maybe TikTok and like the libs of TikTok account, they're able to find all of these far left teachers that are teaching that stuff. And like, honestly, at the end of the day, it's just like, you have to fire those teachers.
Right.
And there just needs to be a rule that like, you don't talk about your sexuality to a student, whether it's like straight, because like you also have to give the straight teachers some credit. I mean, I'm sure there are some times when like there has been a pregnant like first grade teacher and probably a student came up to them and was like, oh, how'd the baby get in your belly? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure these uncomfortable type of questions that you don't cross the line with don't just come to LGBT teachers. They also come to like straight to, and so it's like, where do you just kind of be like, oh, well, like that's not really something I can like talk to you about. Like there just has to be a certain line when it comes to like sexuality in general that you just don't talk about to kids, and that's just where it is. It's like none of that should be discussed or talked about at all with.
Well, and that's what I don't like. I guess this is a very new problem, or maybe I just was in good schools. My parents always like made sure to live in nice areas, so we were in good schools.
Yeah.
But I don't ever remember my teachers talking even about like their husbands or wives. Like I remember knowing that a teacher was married because she was a Mrs. versus a Miss, but like they never talked about their husbands or their personal lives. Like I remember my 4th, 5th grade teacher would talk about like her grown adult daughters sometimes, but like it was never something that was like in my face about any of my teachers. Like I just never knew that about them, because I feel like that's how it should be. They're there to teach you. You're not there to like be friends and learn about each other's lives and stuff. Like a teacher has a role for a reason. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I think there just needs to be a no talking about sexual things at all. And, like I said, a first grader is going to see their pregnant first grade teacher and be like, hey, how'd the baby get in your belly? There has to be some line with any type of sexual questions a student asks that you just do not talk about and you do not discuss. And it's just like, oh, well, hey, that's something that your parents are going to have to talk to you about. Because I remember my teacher was pregnant. It was my first grade teacher, but she was pregnant when I was in second grade. So, you know, you still see your teacher and oh, she's pregnant. Like, if I didn't know where a baby came from, I'd be like, hey, why are you pregnant? Like, how'd that happen?
Right.
Yeah.
So
and kids are always naturally curious.
Exactly. So I think it's
Yeah.
just, you got to just find the line, whether it comes to like LGBT or not. And
well, I mean, and I think that's what they did. Like, they found the line, and that's don't talk about sexual orientation or gender identity. And like
any sexual orientation,
right.
straight, gay, bi,
exactly.
it doesn't, just don't discuss it.
It applies. Like, it applies. And that's all these people are like, oh, it's the don't say gay bill, whatever. It's not. It says sexual orientation.
Right. Don't talk to your fucking first grade students about how you got knocked up either. If you're straight, don't talk about any of it.
Exactly. Like, it applies to everybody. So the fact that it almost is very telling that they're like, oh, it's the don't say gay bill. It's like you're making this into something that it's not. We don't want our children to learn about any of it. Like, it doesn't matter.
That's the entire agenda of their ideology, though, is making something into what it's not. So they're just continuing playing the game that they always do.
Yeah. And I will be like a little bit of the devil's advocate on the left side. I don't think that it's as bad as it seems. I think the bad teachers that you see on TikTok are probably in California or New York or one of those states that's already like fucked up. But like, to be honest, like if I'm going to be living in Missouri or the Midwest raising kids there, am I going to be as worried about it? No, not at all. Right. I think a lot of it just has to do with like where you live. And I don't think that it's as bad as it seems on TikTok. It's just, you see those few videos and it blows up because everybody wants to fucking comment and give their 2 cents. And it makes it seem like it's worse than it is. But like, how many teachers are at one public school? 40?
Right.
You know, and you have like one bad teacher in like 10 public schools that are going to discuss that shit. I really don't think it's as bad as it seems. That's just my 2 cents on it. But
I agree with you, but I'm going to counterpoint because I went to Portland State.
Yeah.
People would say, like, I read tweets all the time of people like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, the indoctrination isn't that bad. Like, it can't really be as bad as it is on social media.
You're still acknowledging it's there.
Yeah, no, it's still there. And but what we have to focus on is the issue that is there.
Right, but but the thing is like, it is as bad. Like, it is as bad. Like, that's why I would like make it a point and got in trouble with the school to make it a point to like, this is what they're teaching us, because like, yes, there's all these conservatives and I fucking hate a neocon. I hate a tradcon, but like they have a point in like, it's not just overblown for social media. So it does make me like wonder, like, I do think you have a point. Yes, this one TikTok or, you know, Twitter account aggregates all of these all over the country, but like at the same time there has to be some truth to it, because I had that experience where people were like, oh, it's not really that bad, is it? But it was like, it was really that bad.
And I mean, like, just based off of what we can see that there are certain teachers that are taking it too far, or you know, talking to things about that aren't appropriate to their students.
Right.
And those are the things that we need to deal with. And so I just think going forward, there needs to be like a let's not talk about sex at all to fucking young kids, like whether you're straight or gay. I mean, come on, like, you don't think there was ever a first grader that went up to their teacher and was like, what is sex? Like, what did that teacher do to like avert the situation? And that it should be the same thing with like gayness. Like, just don't
they should, in my opinion, they should get training.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a new way to just like not discuss any of it, because it's not just for the LGBT. I mean, just as easily a straight teacher could be like, oh well, my husband's penis went into my vagina and the fucking sperm squirted on my egg and now I have it. Like, that's not something you'd want to say either.
Right, totally.
I don't think most straight teachers are. I do think there is like a certain very, very, very small group of like LGBT teachers that are strictly focusing on like trying to teach about gay things because they're gay, but it's just like, don't fucking talk about any of it. Just fucking don't discuss it. And that's it.
Also, like, I don't know, the only time that any of that should ever be spoken about is if you are taking a high school sexual education class and you're learning about the reproductive systems.
Yeah.
That is the only time and place that should be spoken about, in my opinion. And I don't know. It just like it. I just think it's so
Do you guys think sex ed
gross.
should even be taught in schools? Like, is that something?
I think you should be able to opt in or opt out.
Yeah, we had like a waiver that our parents had to sign to teach us about it.
Yeah, I think you should be allowed to opt in and opt out, because I mean, like, obviously, of course, like if you're going to be taking like, like a human anatomy class or things like that, of course you're going to inherently learn, our reproductive systems, and then you can also put two and two together as to how they work, and so you're going to learn about it in either biology, anatomy, things like that. But if you're specifically talking about like sex ed and like the concept of like how to engage in sex, safe sex, either abstinence, whatever your choice is, I absolutely agree that should be a personal or like a opt in or opt out, because I don't know, what if my kid is like comes back home with a handful of condoms, I'm gonna be like, hey, yo, like,
right,
my kid is 15 years old, like, no.
Another huge problem just with the school in general is that you put a group of 10 and 11-year-olds in a room and they all learn together, and you assume that all those kids are at the same level. Maybe some kid is not ready for that at a certain age, and their parent knows that, and they can say, no, my kid's going to opt out. Maybe they can opt in high school or whatever. Like, just because a kid is 11 or 12 or whatever the number is, does not mean that child individually is ready to learn about these concepts and everything. Like, that's the parent's decision.
Yeah. And I think sometimes sex ed, not obviously, of course, I think that there are some, of course, beneficial aspects to sexual education. However, I also think that in a lot of cases, it can open the gateway to a lot of porn consumption in high schoolers. And what obviously, I don't know what your guys' opinion on porn is and whatever, but I think that for the consumer, obviously not just for the distributors and actors and things like that, but just the effects on the consumer, I think, are extremely harmful. And of course, also on a developing mind, that can it can also cause, a plethora of, distortions later on within your own chemical distribution in your brain.
And that you think sex are like, it's not like that.
Yeah.
And you're going to hate women growing up. I think that's
or
like a whole
you're going to believe that sex is inherently violent, and so I think that the whole concept of sex ed also still needs to be straddled very carefully, because again, it can open a gateway for a lot of harmful things. So I don't know, man. It just I have so many opinions.
It's so confusing. But that's why I'm glad we can talk about this shit, I think.
Yeah, I feel like it was a good conversation. I feel like we should probably, wrap it up with final thoughts. I'll give mine first. It could be about anything from the episode, but I'm just going to give mine particularly about the Don't Say Gay bill, because I did read it. I think that anyone who wants to talk about this bill on Twitter should read the fucking bill. I think it's very, very evident after reading the bill that many people talking about it on Twitter haven't read it. And if you haven't read it, then you truly, truly do not know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't care if you read an article. I don't care. Someone else wrote that article. A fucking journal wrote that article and wrote what they wanted you to hear. Read the fucking bill, because this is the paper. These are the words that are getting passed into law that you say that you're so fucking upset about. Read the bill and then tell me what you're upset about, because after reading it, I'm fucking.
How are parents going to be more upset about having more rights?
Exactly. That's all it is.
Like,
that is
you're really going to be upset about that? Like, damn, that's crazy. Couldn't be me, Like,
and that's why it's so evident that they haven't read it and they're talking out the side of their fucking face. And the whole fucking, this could be a whole nother episode, is like the uneducation and the mass media fucking brainwashing of everybody.
Oh my God. I would love to talk about that.
Like,
oof.
Maybe fucking
girl,
next
I got a
week
comms master's, bro.
Right? Like, it's crazy.
I would love to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Next
I
week,
know. I've had like
we'll
3
talk about
episode ideas so far during this podcast, so we have some good ones coming up. But I guess my final thoughts are just, I am not going to accuse like just LGBT people of only indoctrinating kids. I think it can happen if you're straight too, but I feel like if you have an issue with not wanting to talk to kids about sex, like then don't be a fucking teacher, because that's weird and that's grooming. If any kid, no matter what grade you teach, well, I don't know, high school is there, like any young kid comes up to you talking about sex, whether they want to know how you got pregnant or whether they want to know about your husband and you're gay, like just don't fucking talk to them about it. It's weird. It's gross. You should not be talking to kids about sex. I think most teachers still do a really, really good job about it. But if you are gay and you're coming to school teaching 3rd grade with a gay pride flag on you, like, just don't do that. Like, there's no reason for it. Because you
also
don't
don't make your sexuality your identity, but
yeah, exactly.
Sometimes that's too hard to grasp, I guess.
Because then it's like, I don't know, it's like if you're coming in with a gay pin, then it's like your other teacher could come in with a pin that says like, I fucked my husband a female teacher, like there's just no reason to talk about your sexual orientation to children. It doesn't matter what it is. Just
and it's in no way pertinent to the subject you're teaching. Yeah.
That you are an adult as the teacher. Those are children. What you do in your bedroom or at your house or on your weekends or on your fucking weeknights is your business. It is not their fucking business.
Exactly.
Period.
Yeah.
I don't talk to my bosses at work about what's going on in my husband's and my bedroom. Like that's not.
Your students don't need pronouns. Like just let them be kids.
Yes.
They'll figure out one day they can have these discussions with their parents.
There's so much time. Yes, there's so much time to have these conversations.
Trans people have been trans forever and figured it out. So just don't talk about it. That's it.
Period.
Yeah. I guess my final thoughts are just basically the same as your guys's. And also if you are, planning on competing in sports and transitioning to the opposite sex, my advice is don't, because you will either be hurting yourself or you will be hurting others vehemently, and most likely both. So if you are interested in doing something like that, one, I advise you to, of course, seek professional help before you are, thinking about that. But, pray, do whatever you got, do what you need to do. And, just, I don't know, don't fucking compete in sports if you don't have the genitalia of that sport that you want to compete in. That's just pretty simple.
Agreed.
And then, obviously give more rights to parents. Boom, flat out. I'm done. Simple.
Period.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We will be back again Wednesday nights from here on out. So come on in for a little hump day, wine, and Liberty Rant talk with us every week.
Yes. Thanks for coming this week, guys. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for having me.
Bye.
Bye, guys.